At these plants in Hong Kong and Indonesia, PET bottles usually used for soft drinks are given a new lease of life. PET is a fully recyclable plastic that's also clear and lightweight. Here it's recycled into food-grade plastics that are then used to create new drink bottles.
So essentially we're looking to be bottle to bottle. But the complexity is this is food grade. So obviously people will be drinking from these bottles, but also they've got to look good, also to be durable.
The global recycled plastics market is expected to grow at 6% a year for the next decade, larger than the growth of the plastics market overall. But one obstacle to reaching this market potential is the collection and sorting process.
The plastics market is very confused because there are so many different types of plastic, and very difficult for the public or even people collecting this show to identify what are these different types of plastic. So we have the drinking water bottles, which generally are PET, but not always. Then we have shampoo bottles and things like you might have, which are made from HDPE. And then you've got films and other materials. So it's very difficult for the public to know how to do that and then how to separate them, because these are all completely different chemicals. And a lot of the plastics don't like each other. They react against each other.
Despite that, Alba says it's found ways to make plastic recycling profitable by tailoring its process to the end use of the feedstock, the material produced through the recycling process.
So if we're doing PET bottles, then we really need to know that where the source of the PET feedstock, how it's being prepared, and then we need to have the equipment that's suitable for handling that particular feedstock mix that you get, and also then identifying potentially the end market.
Not all plastics are created equal. Other factors that determine how profitable the recycling process will be include the value of the type of plastic that is recycled, as well as how much of it reaches the recycling facility.
If you have a high value plastic, there will be an incentive to recycle it, and the recycling rate will increase. The other factor will be the volume. There are still a lot of economies of scale in the process of recycling and the supply chain for it. And so plastics that have kind of lower volumes are more expensive to recycle.
Low oil prices during the pandemic drastically reduced the price of making new plastics. Going forward, that's why government regulation will play a key role to ensure that consumers and businesses get on board.
Companies all over the world are preparing for legislation forcing producers to use a certain percentage of recycled material in their production. But additionally, the big soft drink companies are taking measures to satisfy their customers' demand that the bottles should eventually be 100% made from recycled material. But because the recycling industry cannot deliver the required amount of recycled plastics quick enough, the prices for recycled plastic are now 2 to 3 times higher than the price of the virgin material, and that makes them profitable.
In Singapore, the Plastics Recycling Association identifies potential plastic recycling projects. It helps bring stakeholders together, including investors, operators, and regulators. The association says more stakeholders need to get on board, especially in land-scarce Singapore. Key to that is incentivizing consumers to recycle more effectively.
For households, I think a couple of things that are important are convenience and behavior change, right? So for convenience, we've put in place the National Recycling Program. I mean, we now have about 1 bin per HDB block, and some blocks, the newer blocks, also have recycling chutes. So we are making it as convenient as possible for households to recycle their household recyclables, be it paper, plastic, metal, or glass. So we also have a challenge though of contamination, right? So about 40% of the material in the recycling bins, the blue bins that you see around Singapore, actually are not recyclable.
There is the perception that plastics recycling is a sunset industry useful for a few small waste collectors. However, we know that the 400 million tons of plastics produced every year in the world cannot be discarded any longer. We have to do something with the stuff. Incineration just moves the problem from the ground to the sky.